and welcome. Thank you for being here for this webinar this afternoon. My name is Amy Blackshaw, and I am the Behavioral Health Project Director at the California School-Based Health Alliance. I am really happy that you chose to join us today for our webinar, which is focused on supporting youth with ACEs and toxic stress, resources from Live Beyond, the Office of the California Surgeon General's Youth Co-Created campaign. We're really thrilled to have an expert panel today, and I will introduce them in a moment. Today's webinar is the third in a three-part series that we have hosted focusing on ACEs screening and response for children and youth in school settings. The first was an overview focusing on addressing ACEs in school-based health centers and wellness centers. The second focused on healing strategies for response and connection to support youth with ACEs. And then today's webinar. In the materials that you will receive following the webinar and at the end of today, we will be sharing the recordings and slides from our first two webinars if you would like to check them out. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. So we'll be recording today's webinar, as I mentioned, and you will receive the follow-up information and supporting resources. We will have time at the end for some questions, so you can feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we will try to get to as many as we can. And finally, when you log off today, a very short evaluation will pop up for you to complete. It's really quick, but we would really appreciate your feedback on what you got out of today's webinar. So before we get started, I just want to say a few words about the California School-Based Health Alliance. We are a statewide nonprofit organization, and our mission is to improve the health and academic success of children and youth by advancing health services in schools. And we do this in a number of different ways, through capacity building, through technical assistance, through convenings, workshops, webinars like this one today, by identifying experts in the field who are doing school health work and sharing their best practices. We also have lots of tools and guides to help build capacity, which you can find on our website. And we really work to support the growth and expansion of school-based health and wellness centers across California. And every year we do host an annual conference. Ours is coming up in just a few weeks. We will be in Anaheim at the Hyatt Regency on April 28th and 29th. We welcome you to join us. I know it's late in the game, but we still have space available. And we also have scholarships available if the cost is an impediment. So please feel free to reach out, and we'll put that information into the chat for you. If your organization is not a member of the California School-Based Health Alliance, please consider joining. It gives discounts for conference registration, for example, and also technical assistance that might be tailored to your specific organization or school's needs. And we will, again, share the link to sign up for that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and invite our panelists to share theirs. And while they're doing that, I'm going to introduce our panel. We are thrilled to have three experts here today. Camellia Mortezazadeh is the Director of Strategy and Insights at Civilian Agency, which is a California-based cause marketing agency that's focused on creating impactful community-designed campaigns, and she leads the statewide research and strategy development for the Live Beyond campaign, which you'll be hearing more about today. Also from Civilian Agency is Cara, who is an account supervisor. She leads the day-to-day implementation of the Live Beyond campaign across California on behalf of the Office of the California Surgeon General and CYBHI, which is the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative. And finally, we have Julio Sagastume. He is a UCLA labor studies graduate, and he became deeply passionate about social justice in the service sector industry through union work and grassroots organization initiatives. He has served as the youth advisor on the Live Beyond campaign. And he looks forward to leveraging his social justice work and contributing toward health equity as a matriculating medical student and future physician. So we're so thrilled to have all three of them here. So welcome, and I will pass the baton to our presenters.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Amy. Let me share my screen. I want to make sure I can share sound for you all as we get going for this presentation. But we're so delighted to be here. I will also make sure to introduce my colleagues. We will be sharing about our campaign, Live Beyond, created with the Office of the California Surgeon General as part of the Children, Youth, and Behavioral Health Initiative, and are eager to share some of the resources that can support kids in schools. So before I start, just again, I wanted to introduce our team, and I'll let them introduce themselves real quick. As Amy mentioned, I oversee strategy and insights for the campaign. This campaign was a large effort with many partners. A lot of them are not listed here today, but you can see some of them here listed. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Cara, to just introduce herself. Cara, you muted.
I'm sorry. I'm Cara O'Shea. I am the account supervisor with Civilian, so been very involved in helping bring this campaign to life and really happy to be here to share more about Live Beyond and answer any questions.
And then we'll just pass it to Julio real quick.
Hi, really happy to be here. My name is Julio. I've been involved with PCSA since actually a workshop with Amy not long ago, and I've been part of UCAN and also Live Beyond for approximately 2 years. Really excited to be here with all of you and incredibly happy to share with the team and everyone here regarding what we've been able to learn and the work that we've done.
Thanks so much, Julio. So before we start, we had a few poll questions just to get a sense of where the audience is at. So we're going to launch that poll right now. Most of you have been in these webinar series, so we think you have some answers to these. But it's always good to check. Okay. So yes, we've all heard of the term ACEs. That's wonderful. Let's go to our next question. Most of us have. And what about the term toxic stress? How many of you have heard of the term toxic stress before? Okay. All right, wonderful. And let's go to our last question. We're curious, how many of your schools or workplaces regularly discuss or incorporate content related to ACEs and toxic stress? Okay. A bit more varied. Well, wonderful. This is very helpful for us. This is why we're here today. This campaign will talk a lot about these topics, but it's very much geared towards reaching youth and young adults. And so we're eager to share with you some of the resources that have made this campaign. So thank you so much. I see here, I think you all got the results and can see them too. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Cara, who will walk you through some of the background of our campaign, and then you'll hear more about the actual campaign, some of the resources, and a lot of the youth work that helped build it.
Thanks, Camellia. Oh, I'm sorry. I see that you're sharing your screen. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we're really excited to share with you today more about Live Beyond. Some of you might have already seen it. We've been live for almost a year now. So today we're going to provide updates on the campaign, highlighting how we co-created this campaign with diverse youth across California and how youth have really been the center of our work. But just to kind of quickly ground us on some background and the intentions behind Live Beyond. As Camellia mentioned, this campaign is part of the Children, Youth, and Behavioral Health Initiative and was created in partnership with the Office of the California Surgeon General to increase public understanding of ACEs and toxic stress. And it sounds like all of you know what ACEs are. They're those stressful or potentially traumatic events that happen to you before 18. And as we know, ACEs can lead to what we know is toxic stress and can affect us, our physical and mental health well into our adult years. And as I'll get into shortly, there's a high prevalence of ACEs in California that we're addressing with this campaign to help people heal and hopefully end cycles of trauma for future generations. And the goals of this campaign are to drive an increase in awareness of ACEs and toxic stress among Californians and to support the prevention and mitigation of ACEs and toxic stress and their effects. So to accomplish this, we set out to do a few different things as part of this effort. So our campaign aims to, as mentioned, increase knowledge about what ACEs and toxic stress are. We aim to influence attitudes and beliefs that healing is possible. And there are things that you can do today and tomorrow to manage stress, and support is available. You're not alone in this. The campaign also aims to help people build skills to manage their stress, utilizing evidence-based strategies such as stress busters. And last but definitely not least, we want to inspire people to take action for themselves, whether that means applying some of those stress busting strategies at home or seeking support through community or a healthcare provider or whatever suits them and their needs and their kind of unique healing journey. Next slide. And as I mentioned earlier, ACEs are very prevalent in California, and there is a critical need to address it. This slide just kind of summarizes some key findings from a 2023 survey conducted by RAND. The survey was conducted amongst California's youth and young adults, as well as parents and caregivers. And the study revealed that 3 out of 5 people in California have experienced at least one ACE, and 23% of youth and 30% of parents and caregivers have experienced 4 or more ACEs. But even so, only 10% of youth and caregivers had heard of the term ACEs and know what the acronym stands for, just further indicating this pressing need to educate around ACEs so that they can begin to understand the effects that it might have on their lives today and start to heal. The research also tells us that as the number of ACEs we experience increases, so does the risk for toxic stress and related diseases and other serious health conditions. So, again, just really want to invest in these strategies to prevent ACEs and mitigate the long-term effects to yield substantial benefits for the individual and communities, but also in terms of just general population health and the economic burden as well. So who are we primarily trying to reach with this campaign and our resources? Primarily, this is intended to reach youth and young adults aged 16 to 25, which is why having youth at the center of our campaign development was so critical. We're also reaching parents and caregivers of youth aged 8 to 16 and also creating materials for healthcare providers and CBOs and other key partners where ACEs screenings and education occurs. And as with many CYBHI campaigns, we're focusing primarily on BIPOC and economically disadvantaged, system-impacted youth, tribal and indigenous communities, and other impacted communities not listed here, but who we've been able to target through many layers of outreach to make sure that we're reaching communities and individuals who might benefit the most from this campaign. And I will now pass it back to Camellia just to talk a little bit more about the campaign development process and what all that went into making sure that our strategy would resonate with the main audiences we're trying to reach.
So much, Cara. So key to this campaign was assembling the right group of advisors. And that included youth advisors, but also it included a good chunk of subject matter experts. And I'll talk through that. One of the key things we did initially was just really take the time to listen. So it was about 7 listening sessions across the state, nearly 100 participants. Here's just a couple of the organizations, but really taking the time to kind of understand what people are talking about. How are we talking about this? Past campaigns have really focused on know your ACEs score and like all the bad potential things that can happen to you. But we know that we had to do something different for this campaign, especially if we wanted to reach young people. And if you're interested in seeing what we heard, that's all available online at the Office of the Surgeon General's website. But definitely looking at a lot of the feedback of providers and support resources that are working with youth and talking about these issues in their own authentic ways. So key to our campaign was our Youth and Young Adult Advisory. So this is a group of our Youth and Young Adult Advisors, and we're really fortunate to have Julio here with us today. And they are made up of youth across the state, lots of different lived experiences with ACEs and toxic stress, but also just very different backgrounds. And each of them have contributed from the beginning to when we first started doing the listening, to looking at mood boards, to talking about messaging, to talking about resources, and so much more. And so if Julio's here, so I'd love for him to say a few words about just the process. So Julio, if you don't mind coming on camera, we'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts have been just in this whole youth advisory process.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been very grateful to work with a very large, diverse range of youth advisors that span all across California, from San Francisco all the way down to LA. And we've done a lot of work. A lot of us have experienced ACEs or have, in some way, shape, or form experienced ACEs within our communities. And we've been very adamant about, finding ways to heal. And so very frequently we have meetings, and, for a good 2 years, we were having meetings about twice to one time a week, where we would, follow up regarding our work with our communities. We would hold webinars too, and we were pretty active. So a lot of us are very active within our spaces too.
So much, Julio. And one of the things I think has been really key to this campaign is, young people are sharing their experiences with us, and we treat them as consultants. We always pay them for their time, whether it's presenting on a webinar like this, or speaking, or giving input. But that's been very key to us working with young people, building that trust, but also just making sure that, they are spokespeople for the campaigns and they sort of own the message organically. Another thing we've done is work with some campaign subject matter experts. This has included the former California Surgeon General, Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, as well as the current Surgeon General, and really making sure that we're just thinking about a range of partners that work on these topics, but also are spread across California, to make sure that we kind of are just incorporating different viewpoints and checking our messaging, making sure that our facts are right, and making sure that it's on point, because it's a different type of campaign. It's reaching youth. So we have to really marry, the science with also kind of ways in which young people talk about these things. So with that, I'd love to pass it to Julio to kind of talk about just that. What are the insights and learnings we've heard from talking to youth across the state? And just let me know. Next slide, Julio, whenever you're ready.
That sounds good. Thank you, Camellia. Next slide, please. And so for a lot of the youth advisors, just to provide a little bit of background about myself, I first found about ACEs when I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I was placed on chemo, a treatment plan of chemo and surgery, and it wasn't until my medical care team told me, "Hey, have you heard about ACEs?" And this opportunity came about, and I was super excited to apply. And I met so many of these youth advisors. And a lot of us, when it comes to ACEs, we're talking about ACEs. There's these ideas of stigma and shame which exist, especially regarding mental health. Mental health, we've all agreed upon, is a very difficult subject to address, and these are barriers that are preventing youth from healing and from addressing their ACEs. Another thing that we notice is there's different points and different stages of a willingness and ability to be more willing to understand about ACEs and to heal. And a big burden on youth is this, there's this existing idea that it's up to us to break these cycles. And in many cases, these cycles are intergenerational. They're passed down from generation to generation. And that's one thing to be very mindful of. And help can be hard to find, especially for those that are very socioeconomically disadvantaged, or that, perhaps come from a very rural area or don't have that background. Especially if there's a lot of stigma and shame within their, household, their family. There could be a lot of trauma within families. And yeah, healing isn't linear. So although ACEs, it might be easy to think of healing in a very linear manner, sometimes healing takes, it's a long journey that can take many years. And a big thing that a lot of us are very active. We've done a lot of community work. We've done a lot of policy writing too. And one of the things that we all agree upon is, especially within our community all across California, acknowledging that, there's a lot of systemic issues that prevent a lot of youth from healing. especially within the medical system, is very important. And so that's a big point of, one of the things that we were consistently talking about, very active about. And yeah, that's just to provide some insights into our work with, among the youth advisors with ACEs. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that we're very grateful for the youth advisors is oftentimes we felt that campaigns, they're not representative. And so we wanted to make sure that we address that by becoming more vocal. And so we're incredibly grateful for, campaigns and organizations like CSHA or Live Beyond and UCAN, because they provided us that opportunity and that platform to even selecting the font or the color scheme. And these are a lot of these, like initiatives and campaigns and advertisements are meant for youth. So a lot of us strongly felt that it's important for us for that message to come from youth directly too. And so a lot of these, one of the things that we worked on was getting through studies and obtaining, that lived expertise. And so some of these quotes here, discuss mental and physical health. And there's no reason to feel like, you can't heal. It's very possible. And the most important thing is to start by asking for help. Next slide, please, to me. And so as I was mentioning, healing isn't linear and it takes time. And for a lot of people, perhaps, addressing the pieces might take a good portion of either, their childhood, adulthood. But it's important to understand that there's hope. And so that's one of the things that we wanted our campaign is, one of the things and one of those really strong, I would say, even elements that we wanted our campaign to have is hope for everyone, not just, even among those that are most disadvantaged, that there's opportunity for growth and healing. Next slide, please, Camellia.
Thank you so much, Julio. So that is a lot of what helped kind of really guide our campaign and kind of really thinking about our messaging. And one thing you'll see with our campaign is it's not heavy on all the data or the stats or all the things that can happen because you've experienced ACEs. It's really about hope. As Julio mentioned, it's about healing. It's about, you're not the worst thing that maybe has happened to you. And just really thinking about a future focused, positive message to talk about these things. So one quick thing I just want to do real quick, I want to try to reshare so I can make sure to share my sound with you all, because I would love for you all to hear. Oh, that's so funny. I don't know why it's not working. Let me see one quick thing. Okay. We do have some of our commercials we'd love to show you, but we'll try to share my sound. If for some reason it doesn't, you'll be getting this deck and you could definitely look at these on your own time. But when we look at our campaign, as you can see, it's very optimistic, encouraging, real. A lot of our youth picked the color tones, peach, lavender. These are seen as calming and comforting. We have the style of photography is the direction is as if someone took a photo of you. So nothing very portrait style, much more kind of raw. We have handwritten note elements to give it that personal feeling. So this is very much how it looks, and it's very intentional. Even the squiggly line you see there is said to represent this idea that healing isn't linear, it's a journey. And the starburst element is really about kind of how we have hope and future, and there's rays of sunshine as we think about healing and moving beyond what happened. This is our website. It's designed to be very mobile friendly. And it's also obviously an online place you can go to, but so key to our website and our social channels is stories. One of the things we did with our youth advisors, but also with parents and caregivers across the state, was we paid them to create content. And so they were co-creators. They have their own videos and stories on our site. So if you go to Live Beyond today and you go to stories, you can see Julio's story, and he talks about kind of his own journey. He has some videos and content he's made, but you'll see that from different people across California. And that was really what we had to do to make this authentic, because nothing can really replace those real stories. And one thing that's very beautiful in working with young people is they do want to share, they want to help others. They do want to share, how they overcame any struggle they've had, but there's this openness that's probably very different than maybe past generations. So please do check out our website as well as our social channels. So key was just really, again, them telling how they had this aha moment and learning about, there's a word called ACEs. There's a word for these things that happen, but also hearing the positive things that can happen when you try to heal. And then really one other thing we did was really kind of talking about things that are relatable for young people. For example, maybe you have a fight or flight reaction, or, angry outbursts, or what are those things that you are experiencing in your day-to-day life that could potentially be because of ACEs you've experienced in the past. So this is our creative as well. We'll show you some more of these resources. We made a beautiful video that's on our YouTube channel that also features a lot of our youth talking about the campaign and kind of this idea of them living beyond. And I would love to show you some of our commercials. So I'm going to try to show you the sound. I hope it plays. If it doesn't, we'll just skip forward and I'll send these links out afterward. Just give me 1 second. Let me try to do that right now. Does the sound come through for everyone? Get someone give me a nod. But one thing that was really key for our commercials is just really talking about, again, how ACEs can affect your health, but also your relationships, because young people care about their relationships. So I'm going to show you now all the parent and caregiver commercial. I just got to note that the sound isn't working. So what I'll do is I will send the link out, or we'll put the links actually in the chat for you to check out the commercials on your own time. I'm going to try one last time to see if we can get the sound to work. I apologize. It worked on our pre-share. Let me try that one last time. Here we go. That was the trick. Here we go. I'll show you all the commercial from before. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
I don't want my adverse childhood experiences, my ACEs, to ever affect her. ACEs can involve abuse, neglect, family substance use, or incarceration. My ACEs still affect my mental and physical health and my relationships. To protect her and heal myself, I'm learning to live beyond what happened. And you can too, at livebeyondca.org.
I'm going to show you back this one because this one's one of my favorites.
After the breakup, I realized some things. My trust issues, lack of boundaries, feeling scared all the time. They're connected to my ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, like growing up around abuse, neglect, substance use, or other trauma. My ACEs still affect my mental and physical health and my relationships. It was on that. But I'm learning how to heal and live beyond what happened. And you can too, at livebeyondca.org.
Great, thank you for bearing with me. And then one last thing we wanted to show you all is we really also talked about this role of supportive adults. So whether that's an aunt, an uncle, a coach, a mentor, a teacher, and like what is their role in thinking about ACEs. So I'm going to show you this commercial as well.
Raising kids can feel like reliving your childhood, the good and the not so good. If you had ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, you can take steps to heal, together. You don't have to do it alone. And if you're that cool uncle, fun auntie, or other caring adult in a kid's life, you can help by being that supportive, consistent presence for them. Someone who listens. Learn more at livebeyondca.org.
And then the last thing is one of the things we did also that was really different in this campaign was we really leaned into gaming culture because many young people played games, video games online, and online spaces. So a big thing that we did was also do some partnerships with Twitch, but also really looking at kind of how we talk about ACEs in an animated video, kind of leaning into like gaming ideas. So I'll show you just a brief clip of this one, but there's more online if you want to see the whole video.
Have you ever wondered if challenges in your daily life are rooted in something deeper? Many of these issues may be connected to adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress. Life is a story with many chapters. Some we cherish, others we simply endure. ACEs are stressful or potentially traumatic things that can happen to us growing up, before we turn 18, and they are more common than you think. In California, nearly 3 out of 5 of us have experienced ACEs. They are not our fault and can be balanced out by having a caring person in our corner, a feeling of belonging, or a sense of community. Any of these can buffer us from the stress of traumatic events. When traumatic events happen,
so I won't show you that whole video, but that was also just a helpful way to really talk to young people and explain what ACEs are and what toxic stress is, but also what are the things we can do. And all of these are available in Spanish on our website. So these were part of a big commercial media outreach we did that some of them are still live, but they're all available in Spanish as well. So now I'm actually going to pass it back to Julio to talk a bit more about the youth co-creation work we did. So go ahead, Julio.
Thank you, Camellia. So one of the beautiful things about working with ACEs is we got the chance to work with many diverse different organizations. And there was a creative aspect to it. A lot of our members, they have very unique backgrounds. For example, one of the fellow members here, Wei and also Jada, they're very artistic individuals. And so a way of for them to release, their stress is to address their ACEs, is to tap into that. And so for them, a way of healing is, de-stressing by doing art, or perhaps if you're Sway, he's really into paintings or murals. I'm not sure, Camellia, if you're going to play the video.
Yeah, I think I will play this one. We'll have some time to play this one. Here we go.
ACEs are those messed up things that happened to you in childhood that probably shouldn't have happened, and you had no control over them whatsoever. And if not cared for properly, they can turn into long-term health impacts. They can even impact your life expectancy.
I knew that I had experienced trauma as a child and adolescent growing up, but I didn't realize how high my ACE score would be.
It led me to eventually end up being incarcerated at the age of 19, where I was facing 23 years to life in prison. And I just correlate all of that to the traumas that I was enduring growing up.
So having that scale by the Surgeon General of positive stress, tolerable stress, and toxic stress provides us a reference and a framework of what can and cannot be acceptable for people and their health.
Drinking teas, eating healthy, having a morning and night routine, just kind of soothing my nervous system.
Yeah, for me, the biggest coping mechanism that I utilize is movement. And right now in my life, that's boxing.
Some of the things I do to help me manage my stress. So I like to paint and I like to knit sweaters and different outfits.
I'll spend hours just kind of tuning out, just sketching different types of things. It definitely helps, ground me.
I've been very blessed to find people who are on a similar healing journey. So we have similar vocabulary and similar experiences that we can relate about and we can share. I was able to learn through them how powerful I was and how I'm more than just my pain.
The person who had the most impact in my life is Crystal Guerra. She was my therapist inside of Orange County Juvenile Home. She played a pivotal role in me being able to self-actualize and kind of realize that I wasn't my worst mistakes.
You're more than the worst thing you've done, and you're far more than the worst thing that's happened to you. Just because of the environment that we came up in doesn't mean that we're always going to be be subject to something that's unhealthy, unpleasant, traumatic. At the point now where I am living beyond, what I went through, and I'm working with people every day, young people, like helping them get their second chance, helping them live beyond some of those similar experiences that we had that might have been so traumatic.
Thank you, Camellia. So one of the things that was very important for us, as Camellia mentioned earlier, is tapping into a lot of things that youth are involved with, whether that's gaming or social media, the internet. And so, for example, here's a story of Jada. There's a very amazing video of Jada and her story of healing on YouTube. And also there's a general website where, as Julio was discussing earlier, that provides our stories. And one of the things that I love is I've become a better person through my colleagues. A lot of these youth advisors, it took them a very long time to open up and to start discussing their issues. And I was compelled to share my story once, Sway, Jada, Sharon were sharing their stories. And so I think it's beautiful. You can click on any of our profiles and, learn more about our stories. And it's just, it's been a blessing working with everyone. And one of the things that we want to do is, be vulnerable and be open, because that's the first step towards healing is, seeking help. And part of that, involves becoming vulnerable and being willing to share, especially among people that you trust. Next slide, please.
Julio, I think we lost
slide,
you. I will advance. Here we go.
One aha moment that I had.
So we have a couple of those online you can definitely check out. And as like we mentioned, Julio has his story too. And there's definitely some of our other youth advisors, as well as parents and caregivers. And now I'll pass it to Cara to talk through some of the native and tribal adaptations we've done.
Great. Thank you. We also partnered with Native and tribal youth designers to help us understand how we could adapt our resources in a way that's going to be culturally relevant in their communities. So we worked with Native youth ambassadors to train them on the campaign and partner with them at statewide events with tribes and partner organizations so that they could be that trusted voice in their community and educate about ACEs and share out the Live Beyond resources that they help to co-create and design. So if you go to the next slide, there's a sample of some of the pieces that the Native designers helped to indigenize. So they ended up creating a Live Beyond Tribal logo, which was used on stickers and event backdrops. We have a tribal specific bookmark, posters, and indigenized stress buster resources as well. And we continue to distribute those at tribal events on an ongoing basis. And we've also shipped out boxes and boxes of resources of these native indigenized resources and some of the other Live Beyond pieces to urban and rural Indian health organizations and other native nonprofit organizations to distribute them to their communities. And this is just a snapshot of a book list on our website. And has all sorts of books in different genres that people might like to help them on their healing journey. And we worked with our youth ambassadors to curate some books specifically for the Native American audience. Okay, and just moving into some of the more general Live Beyond resources we wanted to highlight. This is a snapshot of our website that we encourage you to visit. It has everything that we've created to date on there, and there are all sorts of different presentations and stress busting resources and videos to take a look at. Many of those resources are actually also available in not just English and Spanish, but 6 different languages, including AAPI languages and Arabic. So if you visit this site, all of this is available for download, and we encourage you to take a look and see what might be most helpful in your organization. If you go to the next slide, we can just show you what some of those pieces are. So on the top left there, we have a healing journal. This piece has been super popular. It has daily journaling prompts. It also has inspirational quotes sprinkled throughout. We have a bookmark that links out to our book list page. We have a poem card that defines ACEs and toxic stress for anyone who might not be aware. And if you go to the next slide, just a couple more pieces to mention. We have on the bottom there, it's a stress busting folding pocket card that has different stress busting techniques that someone could keep in their pocket or their purse or in their car for quick reference to stress busting activities kind of in the moment. We have a ton of different sticker varieties, and we also have a tip sheet that explains more about the campaign and how you can activate the campaign in your organization. So this is just a few, but definitely encourage you guys to go to the website to see all that we have created. And yes, as mentioned, a lot of these are available in Spanish for sure, and many are available in AAPI languages and Arabic as well. And a more recent addition to our resource library is what we call the Accessing Help Patient Guide. So this is a guide for people who might want to seek professional support. It's a multi-page guide. It's available in 6 languages, and it has a ton of useful information that can help people navigate a conversation about ACEs with their provider, and also explains what other supports are available to them. So it addresses questions like, what support is available to me? What are my rights? What's confidential? How do I even go about finding a provider? What do I need to know about insurance? And it also identifies other free resources and apps that can be accessed, and just generally gives a lot of options and guidance for people to help people navigate taking that next step to get help. This is also something that we worked with our youth advisors on. So Julio, feel free to chime in if there's anything specifically you wanted to add here. But they were crucial in helping us figure out like what's the look and feel of this piece and what is the type of information they might want to know about as they seek seeking support.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for asking me. I've done a few events where actually we're in it, even with the Inland Empire Health Initiative, IEHC, and I got the chance to meet with connect with a lot of teachers, educators, counselors, and a big hit with the booklets. 1000%. A lot of educators, a lot of parents, they really like the booklets, especially since, as you were mentioning, you can have them on the side or in your backpack, and they have a lot of really good tips in terms of stress relieving, ways to cope, and developing just healthy coping mechanisms and adopting a growth mindset. And we've also gotten the chance to work with other community organizations. So Luna is actually a big one. It focuses on mental health awareness, and with a lot of these flyers and informational booklets, we always try our best to include a QR code. That way, perhaps you're not able to fit certain information in a booklet. You can scan it directly on the flyer, and then it takes you to additional resources, which is a huge plus. And especially among a lot of youth, which are very, a lot of them are tech savvy. If they have, additional questions, or perhaps if they want more resources, they're able to scan like a flyer or the little booklet that gives additional, stress relieving activities. And it's something that I've used, and it's a great, especially among educators, it's been a really good hit.
Go ahead.
Thanks so much. So those are a couple of our campaign resources. Those are all available digitally. And if anyone would like a toolkit, again, this is a state-funded campaign, so we do have hard copies of these materials that we can mail to you while supplies last. We'll have an email address at the end of this webinar if you are interested in getting any of these materials. We ship them out in a box. We have different languages available. It's this sort of preset box with various resources you've seen here. But one thing we want to just also really focus on are like, what are those ideas for education partners? Many of you here today work in schools or school-based settings or school-based health centers. And so here's some ways we can think about incorporating the campaign into the work that you do. One of the things we've been talking a lot about, we mentioned the patient guide, but this is talking about this campaign, we really try to relate it to what young people are dealing with today, and thinking about a young person's mental and physical health and how ACEs or things from their childhood, like anger outbursts, sleeping problems, trust issues, negative thought patterns. You heard a bit about that in the commercial. We really try to make it very relatable, because we know, talking about things that might happen 20 or 30 years ago, or your risks, isn't going to be that well received for young people. So very much really looking at the here and now, what are the things we can do and how that might relate to things that happened to you in the past. And knowing too that ACEs can impact a student's ability to do well in school, their self-esteem, and their engagement more generally. We talk a lot about positive childhood experiences, and what those are, supportive relationships, skills to cope, participating in culture, feeling a sense of belonging, and kind of how we can cultivate those, and what's the role of caregivers, but also other supportive adults in the community. And then really knowing that schools and educators are important partners in facilitating these positive childhood experiences, feeling a sense of belonging in school, helping build those coping skills, and using trauma-informed healing practices. So many of you know these things, but we're sharing the resources as kind of an extra tool to help kind of guide those conversations. So a couple of activity ideas that use our resources. One thing that we've done with some of our campaigns is just also the importance of sending out information about ACEs. We've partnered with the California Interscholastic Federation, and have sent out emails to students across the state who are involved in sports, as well as their parents, talking about the campaign, letting them know what ACEs are, but that how their role is so important. So thinking about sending an informational email, having some of the materials out, hosting a workshop, looking at various trauma-informed practices and trainings that are offered by ACEs Aware. There's lots of things we can do, and here's some helpful resources. We have a lot of these on our website. We also will send this out, but if you are looking for a draft email template, sometimes it's easy just to copy and paste an email and send it out. We have something here too that can let people know more about the campaign and more things for them to check out. And for young people and even parents, we love to always send them to our social channels. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, our YouTube channel, because that's where a lot of the content is, and that's where a lot of them are spending their time. Another thing we do is really working with students to understand the effects of ACEs. And so the animated video I kind of just showed you all a brief preview of, that really helps talk about how ACEs can really show up in young people's lives, whether it's their mental health, physical health, their relationships, and really thinking about how it just makes it relatable of like, these might be tied to things that have happened to you. But also with this message that whatever happened in the past doesn't define your future, and that there are really proven things you can do to help manage your stress. We worked a lot with ACEs Aware, that's the statewide initiative in California to do ACE screenings, to really look at what are those evidence-based stress-busting tools, and really talk a lot about that in our campaign. And we're really mindful to say, these are things that you can do for free. They don't require money, gym membership, but like really also showing the stories, like the really beautiful stories that young people have across the state of like, when we say being out in nature is healing, that could mean gardening in your home, growing a plant. When we think about our book list, when we think about what is, exercise mean or physical activity, just finding ways that are very relatable, and working and really having stories of young people across the state living in different environments, talking about how they are doing these things and how they are working on healing. And then a lot of what we've done most recently is like, what is that next step? Like if I do want to go get some more support, if I do want to find a therapist or talk to my doctor, we have some content on our website modeling those conversations, and also the guide that you saw earlier that Cara mentioned. some of the things we talk about too, this is just what I was going into, to have students think about what are those stress busters and looking at the different stories. We have them on our website, being mindful and centered, eating well, sleep and rest, moving your body. And we really try to talk about, the science, like what happens in your brain when you go and experience nature? What happens in your brain? How does that help you heal, with also some ideas of what does that mean? And really giving ideas for students and educators to think about that. We have some resources to support that work too. Another idea is thinking about activities that really explore culture and talking about how that's a positive childhood experience, is helping people feel connected to their culture. What are projects we can do with students? Many of you will probably do this. We have some other resources here that can help facilitate that work. And finally, creating a book nook. We're going to do some great stuff in May that Cara's going to talk about like really thinking about our book list and how hearing other people's stories is so impactful. There's Book Talk, which is a whole space on TikTok that talks about books. And just also thinking about libraries, whether it's your school library or public library, as like these is kind of one of the last few free public spaces where people go, families can go to, and just the power of talking about stories and healing and reading about stories. So thinking about setting up a dedicated space in the library, featuring some of our books. Our bookmark has a QR code that goes to our book list, and we're also going to have a bookmark that has a QR code to the Palace app, which is a place you can get free online books if you have a public library card anywhere in the state. So that's another thing that we have coming for them to kind of be able to access and read these books. And one of the things we're going to be rolling out in May too is really a whole toolkit on positive childhood experiences. What do those mean? And how do we talk about that with other supportive adults? And like, how can you help nurture those for young people in your life? And then just really kind of speaking to the broader community about how everyone plays a role in helping young people heal and thrive. So here's some examples of those posters that are going to be coming out in May. We have another palm card that's coming out talking about what safe, stable, and supportive relationships are, some examples of ideas of things to do, and then resources like Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCA. And then, of course, the state also has the Saluna and Bright Life app. Saluna is a on-demand app for 13 to 25-year-olds that they can get free kind of mental health support, one-on-one support with professional coaches. And then Bright Life app, which is more for parents and caregivers to get parenting support and tips. And with that, I'll pass it to Cara to talk about what's next for Live Beyond.
Great. Thanks, Camellia. Yeah, just a couple of more slides to go that I'll take us through pretty quickly here. So what is next for Live Beyond? If you can go to the next slide, Camellia. We continue to be very active across the state. We've got a robust media campaign across the state, urban and rural communities. We continue to do a ton of outreach as far as events and sponsorships and public service announcements and influencer partnerships to reach a wide audience in a lot of different ways. And if you go to the next slide, our next big splash is around Mental Health Awareness Month coming up in May. And just, knowing that libraries are a free and safe space for many, and given how well received our book list and bookmarks have been, we're planning to hold events at a few different libraries across the state in May, where we can share our resources and do some fun stress busting activities like succulent making and tea making and some other fun stuff. We know a lot of young people are going to be studying for finals around that time, or maybe it's just where they go to hang out. So we definitely want to be available to them to partake in some of the activities and share journals and some other helpful resources. We are super excited to be partnering with Michael Threets, also known as Michael the Librarian, as some of you might be familiar with. He is going to support us by speaking at an event and doing some social posts, driving people to our website. Also thrilled to be partnering with LeVar Burton, more on the digital side of things. So he's going to be doing some social posts to get the word out about Live Beyond, which is, of course, we're so grateful for that. And we're also going to partner with a couple of book talk influencers to reach their audiences as well. So very excited to have these partnerships and amplify Live Beyond during Mental Health Awareness Month and encourage people to start thinking about the small steps that they can take for their mental health and help them live beyond their ACEs. So with all that said, and I know that was a lot, we would love to open it up to any questions or comments.
Just as a reminder, if you are interested in toolkits and having those sent to you, we'd love to get those out. Feel free to email us at this email address, and we'd be happy to send you a toolkit. I'm going to stop sharing so we can have our faces on the screen and open to any questions, comments. Feel free to write them in the chat. Oh, yep, I'll put that in the chat. Here we go. Here we go. beyondca.org. That is the email address. Everything is available digitally for download, but you are welcome to, get a toolkit.
I will ask a question while we're seeing if others have any, but thank you for your presentation. I was wondering if you have some success stories that you could share about how schools or communities are using the resources. What have you heard back from the field, from the world, since launching all of these beautiful resources?
Yeah, maybe each of us could share one anecdote. I know Julio's been doing a lot of community work. Cara's been doing her work. I think one thing we've done is we released a healthcare provider toolkit that included that patient guide and posters and sent them out to a lot of FQHCs and kind of clinics that were part of ACEs Aware or maybe partners. And I think we've heard great feedback. A lot of some of the smaller clinics have been like, we're going to outfit our clinic with the posters, and it's very seamless. But I think just knowing there's limited time to talk about these things often. And for young people and even adults, if they have an ACE screening and they have questions, they might not get that extra support or have that time. And Live Beyond is a great place to pick up, but to sort of be like, well, let's talk about this more. Let's understand what these are. And just being very mindful to really move beyond, what is your ACE score and what's your number? Like, we don't really talk about that in our campaign. We really just focus on the role of healing. Obviously, we're talking about skills that young people need, regardless, coping skills, but that's a key piece of what our campaign is doing. So I think that's been where I've seen a lot of great feedback too, is just from healthcare providers in various settings talking about the campaign and how it's been helpful to kind of give those next steps to people.
Yeah, and I could share some that we've heard from the field as well. So a lot of different organizations just saying that the resources have been invaluable to the organization and requesting more. Like I said, people especially love the journals. So we were so glad to see that those were being put to use. And on an individual level, we sometimes get emails to our info@livebeyond email just with people sharing, stories like, I found out I had a high ACE score, but I have never known what to do next. And this campaign has really helped me navigate that. So obviously, we love to hear that. And the campaign, now that we've been live for almost a year, really is gaining a lot of momentum. So we get a lot of requests for additional toolkits, and it seems like a lot of people are finding them very useful. So yeah, we love to hear that.
Thanks, Cara. Definitely a lot of success on my end. I'm not sure if it's because there's the field that I'm in, or perhaps in the sector that I work in, but I currently work for a health consulting company, and so most of our patients are Medi-Cal patients under Molina Healthcare. And even for training for my job, we had to get trained on ACEs, and so it was interesting because when I was doing the trainings, I helped contribute towards the trainings. I was telling my colleagues that, I helped build this a little bit. They just were not believing me at all. But it's great. A lot of the patients that we talk with, we discuss ACEs with them. Most of our patients are pediatric patients. Less broadly, there's been a few medical fairs, like medical school fairs that I've been involved with, where medical students too are, becoming more involved with ACEs, and I provide the email, to them. And they want to learn more, and it's becoming such a big thing. It's great to see. Personally, I connected with a Section 8 housing facility in SoCal, in LA County actually, and they were having a health fair, and so I had extra materials, extra booklets, extra journals, and I was happy to be part of that. And so they made a little space for me, and I was providing those pamphlets, and that's something that I've learned is just a lot of a lot of people are very receptive to, obtaining these resources because it's needed across, all communities, even with newly healthcare patients. Our goal is to make sure that our patients are all familiar with ACEs. And so definitely a lot of success.
And I think one last anecdote I'll share is I think when we worked with our Native youth ambassadors and our partners to really indigenize resources, I think what was helpful to hear is that the messaging didn't need to be changed. And we spent a lot of time really just doing the research and talking to enough people to kind of get at what are those universal truths that people feel and experience, so that we worked with Native artists to customize the stickers, and everything in there is very intentional. In the photography, it's actual community members, but just this idea of healing's possible. What does that mean? And just kind of really being future focused. Is a different, it translated across lots of different communities and demographics. And so we feel good about that, just because I think that's always, tricky, is making sure that, the messaging is on point, and speaks to some universal truths that everyone experiences. So that's been helpful. I saw one question in the chat I'm just going to answer live, about if we're recruiting any more youth advisors. This campaign is live, probably for the rest of the year. So I think we're always, if there are youth members that are interested in becoming involved, we always have opportunities to think about like tabling or creating content. So feel free to just connect with us offline on that info@livebeyond email. What we did very intentionally with Julio and a lot of his, the youth advisors, is just like meet regularly, and kind of, they were with us from kind of very, very beginning when we were just thinking about this. And we thought this was going to be a campaign about talking to your doctor. And we were sort of ideating on what this could be about, and what is this really going to speak to. So just, it is very much evolved. And so we definitely have opportunities if young people want to get involved, get toolkits, do some work across the state. Just reach out to us and let us know.
Thank you. Any other questions? I see a positive comment in the chat, just really appreciating the resources and seeing how mental health teams can work with their students, both in groups and individual. So that's great to hear. I was curious too about if you've learned anything about the preference of what kind of tools are most impactful for young people. Are they the digital tools, or are they the paper versions? I know sometimes in school-based health centers, when I worked in them, there'd be brochures that were just gathering dust, right? And so what have you learned? And that might have been because they were not really youth informed or youth co-created, about like what are the resources that seem to have had the most impact?
I'll chime in and I'll let Cara chime in too. I think one thing that's been really, I think she mentioned the journals have been really impactful. The journals that we have prompts and like reflective questions in them. We've had adults like our journals, so it's very much lots of different audiences. I think the palm cards are helpful because this is a very scientific topic. And when we get into the science of ACEs, when you get into what toxic stress is, toxic stress responses, it can get very heavy, and lots of scientific jargon that goes with it. So I think trying to find a very simple way of like, here's what they are, here's why they matter, and here's things you can do, has just been like key for us to not really like go so much into that science, but like really being thoughtful about just like the messaging and how we do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think the website and our social media channels that house all the stories has probably been the most impactful. And we do hear a lot of feedback from youth on how that's helped them share more with their friends or have these conversations within their family, and maybe it was uncomfortable before. So I think that's definitely been really inspiring for a lot of people. Because like Camellia was saying earlier, especially if you go to our social media channels, we have our youth advisors on our social media channels, and also just general Californians submitting their stories and wanting to talk about it and share it. And I think that's been super powerful. And that coupled with influencer partnerships to like amplify those authentic stories, I think have been really critical to the success of the campaign.
That's a great question. Personally, I think they've all been very impactful. in different ways in terms of, spreading the word or spreading awareness and generating impressions. Definitely what Cara was mentioning, the having, the websites, the social media impressions, being able to share like via QR code, and on an individual basis, I've noticed that the journals are a big resource. I've used them too. They're great. And to the little booklets, I'm very pro booklet. I like the little booklets, very useful.
You awesome. Okay, so I see that we have no more questions, I don't think. Is there anything we missed from the chat?
I don't think so. I think a few of you have sent us emails since. And so we've gotten the emails and can plan to send out some toolkits. And I'm so excited that you all like these. We very much don't want these to come get sent and sit there and get dusty. And so we hope, and this deck will also kind of give you some of ideas of how to incorporate those in the work that you do. So yes, yeah, thank you for reaching out for those. And we'll get those filled pretty quickly.
Great. Okay, so as we're just wrapping up, I just want to leave you with some resources from the California School-Based Health Alliance. We have a lot of, as I mentioned, resources, toolkits, etc. on our website. If you go to schoolhealthcenters.org, our work, you will get some of the key resources. Also, just I'll plug again, if you're interested in coming to our conference, which is in a few weeks, please reach out and know that we still have some scholarships available for folks. All that information can be found on our website. And again, thank you to our panelists, to Camellia, to Cara, to Julio, and for all of you for spending this time with us. We will follow up with you, and I will ask one last time if you could please provide some feedback when you log off and you see the evaluation pop up. So thank you. Enjoy your rest of your day.